and traveling over to come here.
Pleasure.
I want to just start with sort of let the audience know a little bit about sort of what does Genpact do, and then from there sort of think about how you're thinking about the agentic transformation in the C-suite and the board.
Yeah. So Genpact is a $5 billion company. In 95, 96, it was a part of GE. It was a company which was built for managing back office of GE. And then in 2004, it got spun off as an independent company with a very nice New York Stock Exchange, ticker. Ticker is G. The company has been helping 800 clients, many large enterprises, many mid-sized enterprises, for helping them run their operations and their technology, underlying technologies. So that's what it does.
Maybe your second part of the question, or maybe it's a new question, is sort of, I know you've been thinking very strategically from the ground up and sort of like, what does it mean to sort of reimagine your company in the context of agent? And so like agent transformation, tell us a little bit about the conversations you've been having with the board and with the C-suite on what's driving it.
Yes, absolutely. So look, we have a very clear strategy that we built a couple of years back. We are in the execution right now with the strategy. We have a strong plan in place, which is basically, we call it Genpact Next. And the whole logic there is to become an autonomous enterprise, which essentially means, as Patrick was saying, that we have around 130,000 people. We're going to expand our business and grow our business. And as we grow that business, we foresee our workforce to be having our people and agents. And that's the future. And we're already in that journey right now. So as I was very inspired to see the program plan that Patrick was mentioning, we will have a similar program in place about X amount of agents and their new agent IDs, if you may, and how are we managing that. But that's the future we see. Now we are doing it for ourselves first, because we, as a leadership team, along with the board, felt that unless you do it yourself, you cannot actually do it for anybody. So while we're in a professional services company, we said we'll do it for ourselves. So we call that program as Client Zero, which means it's a Client Zero, and then you start with the next client. Right now, that's what we're doing. We are doing it for us, and we are pretty advanced, a good stage in our journey. Frankly, I would say we are far from the initial teething problems. We are into the real execution and the meat of execution, and we are now putting that whole for our clients as well as we go around.
Awesome. I think it's a funny mention about teething problems. I think we talked about roadblocks, we talked about different issues. Tell us a little bit about sort of the evolution sort of from early vision, which is like, hey, look, I love that you talk about agent workforce. We named our platform Agent Workforce. But sort of think about what are the kind of things you went from the vision to really, here's an action plan, and then some of the changes and challenges you had.
Look, we fundamentally believe that the shift that's happening in the last couple of years, and especially last year, frankly, because it became real it became real in terms of execution. We felt this is the time, the agentic, the world. In our definition of agentic, we are treating this as a way of scalable AI adoption. That's a way to scale the AI adoption into the firm, creating business value. And again, to the point, as Patrick was mentioning, it's not about doing one or two agents here and there. We have 100 plus agents right now in our system, running very effectively, and I can quote a couple of them and say how it works. But the idea is not 100. We did an inventory of what we will need in the future, like in the next just 2 years to 3 years. It is coming out with thousands of them. So we're talking about thousands of agents working along with our workforce to run our own operations, right? But the trick here is that all this investment plan is built on real value creation. So we are assumed that we are 15 months in the journey, roughly. And the first few months was to set up the team, to get the buy-in, everything else, and I'll talk about that. But the sponsorship from the top is super critical. So this topic of how we are creating this value is discussed on a weekly basis at the Global Leadership Council. So there's no board meeting where we don't talk about this topic itself. There's not even a single board meeting where it's not got discussed. So that's the kind of a sponsorship from the top saying, this is real, go and execute, right? It's not about saying, let's do an experiment here and there, let's do one use case and show the power of that use case. It's about a battery of use cases going and flowing at the same time as a systemic change in the company. But the key thing is following, right? At the end of the day, it comes back to the CFO. Because we got the investment for this program, and he's the guardian. He's a guardian in the leadership meeting, leadership council, to say that whether we got the returns or not. He was a non-believer himself, and I'm quoting here because obviously he may be listening to me, but he was non-believer just a few months back by saying, no, you can't put such a big number of expectation of release of funds. In last 6 months, because we started with CIO function first, then we went to HR function because of a people company, we had 130,000 people, so we wanted to automate the entire people function and by using agentic workforce, and then we started going into finance because finance is very critical, right? So obviously now he can touch and feel what's happening in the agentic world because it's his team as a business sponsor for that work. Now he's very pleased because just in last 6 months when we have seen the results coming through, because the first few months was to design and implement and get into production, but now he's starting the real impact. We have got $40 million out of the pocket in the last few months. So it's a real money. It's like a real G&A reduction. It's a total G&A reduction. And now it is becoming more and powerful, saying he's asking, how much can you give me more? So it's a very different discussion. Now discussion is not about whether it's possible or not. The discussion is how big is this efficiency. But it's not only about efficiency. I should not be calling efficiency the only factor because we just mentioned here. It's also about engagement with people. So one example which I'm very passionate about, and I may have mentioned to you earlier, that our we have a chief listening officer in our company. Her name is Amber. She is AI. And she has done 500,000 conversations with our people in the last 1 year. 500,000 conversations. 130,000 people, 500,000 conversations. You can make a math of it, right? Before that, we used to have a survey-based approach, human-based approach. You will touch people at least once or twice in a year. Now it's dynamic touch point with people. But beyond that, what happens is if people have issues, that's addressed at the same time, dynamically, living addressal of the issues. And that was not possible. Now we are able to hyper-personalize our response to our people's issue, which we couldn't have done with a survey-based approach, which is happening once in a while. So that makes sense. But that's a power of employee engagement. Our employee sentiments have gone up to 85% right now, positive sentiments. And that's a power of using AI in a way that can add value to the business.
No, I absolutely love this. I love that it is sort of using this new generation of technology to really rethink sort of what you were doing before, not just simply optimize it, but also sort of rethink it. And this chief listening officer is an awesome sort of example of that. So sort of thinking a little bit now, you sort of talked about, your first step, maybe the first phase was like deploying and doing dog fooding. I came from Microsoft. We are a huge believer in dog fooding. We've been doing that with NVIDIA as well. So I love that you're sort of trying on yourself, but shifting the needle a little bit towards how you want to go to market with your customers. How do you anticipate how your customers will perceive this change internally at Genpact?
Look, we have a very strong belief, and by the way, there are multiple beliefs in the market right now, but we have taken a very strong position. And I'll tell you the position that, and I think we are super satisfied, and because we're seeing the real returns in our hands, is that we believe that AI is heterogeneous technology. It can be deployed across the entire stack, anywhere from bottom, from infra to data to applications to the front applications to the experience, right? Whatever you would have in the entire system. But it has to be embedded inside the fabric of the process workflow at a task level, right? Which means the consumers of this technology, the way they work today, they need to see less friction with tech. And the AI has to be inside the fabric of the workflow itself. Now, as a company, we are process geeks. We came from Six Sigma background. We know process at a very, very minute level, like at what we call as keystroke level, right? We don't care, like our consumers of the process, they don't care whether it's SAP or it's Salesforce, which system they're working on. They just know the process very well. They know how to verify invoice. They just know that. That's what they've been doing for 30 years. So that's a process. Now, what we're doing is we are our fundamental belief is that you put the AI into the fabric of workflow and then you start generating returns. So we're looking everything from an angle of a process and trying to figure out how do we embed AI without creating extra friction points. And that's the way we are thinking about this whole story. So the client, okay, so this year we launched, in February we launched our first, let's say, manifestation of our first strategy called as Services Agentic Solutions. And we started building the agentic solutions. And we picked up the first area called Accounts Payable. And we launched 4 solutions in that. The 4 solutions are AP Trace, Accounts Payable Trace, Accounts Payables Advance, Account Payable Capture, and Account Payable Assist. It's a flow. It's just the flow of the system. So the idea is to look at AI systems. Now, it's not that there are 4 agents. There are multiple agents within these systems. That's how it is. It's one-to-many relationship. But the idea is that you are able to drive efficiency about invoice processing, and you are able to do that much faster rate, much higher quality, and giving much more higher response to your suppliers, which they may be missing right now because of human intervention. Now, to make it real for you, just make it real. Invoice verification is a very simple process. It's a very task-oriented, simple process. It has 3 components: purchase order, you ship the goods, you get a good receipt, second document, the third document is invoice itself, and then you pay the supplier, right? You can't imagine how complex can it get. If assume a situation where somebody is shipping you a good with 100 quantities, 100 items, and you receive 99. So your warehouse says you only got 99, and invoice was billed for 99 or 98. That's called as mismatch in the process itself. Now, whenever you have this mismatch, can you imagine that for every company, whether it's large or small, it can take weeks to resolve that problem and pay the money to the supplier? Can that be happening in hours or minutes? Is a problem we're solving. It's a real problem, right? So for one of our clients who are doing around $10 billion invoices a year, verifying invoices in a year, they may be doing 50,000 plus in a day. Let's assume that is a number. For them, the most important thing was we just want to close the cycle time and throughput time of this. That's the real business value we want, because when we don't close it, our suppliers don't treat us well, or they feel that we are not the right customer for them, and then we don't get the respect against our competition peers. We can't negotiate the new rates with them, and we can't bring the overall cost down. So to just solve this problem itself becomes the business problem to solve for it, right? And there are many other examples like that I'm just sharing with you. That's how we are now moving to the clients. And right now we have, from January onwards itself, we have more than, so we have our own base of 800 clients. So we are going to them. We're saying that we can provide the solution now. We can move you to that solution. And that's work is going on. So we are talking to more than 300 clients right now in that bucket of who are doing accounts payable. 25 have gone live, and that's the progress we're making.
That's awesome. I just love that it's so concrete, and it's like, it's not just simplifying the efficiency, but it's also how your suppliers feel, because they, there's respect. You talked about that, which is sort of not what you normally think about in the context of like AI, but it's great to see sort of the downstream implications of doing a good job.
And Venki, let me just add to that, because now I'm passionate about it.
Yes, good.
You're raising this. So, because it's important for us to understand the problem itself, because that's what Patrick said. If you don't understand the problem, the value is not going to come, and investments are not going to come in the future. And that was the issue when people say Gen AI is not producing results, because you are using Gen AI for a very local and general problem, which cannot get the business value. Unless you go deep in the problem, you don't solve it. So, picking up the example of the invoice, there are suppliers who may be bad suppliers. I'd call it bad actors. Now, how can AI help identify those bad actors? And that's where there's a functionality which I was talking to about AP Trace. What it does is anomaly detection, right? What it does is it keeps watching all the suppliers who are, assume there's a supplier who always ships you less material than you always ask for. So once he catches that and it's against outside the threshold, it flags that's called agent in execution. It flags the issue and alert saying this supplier has to be now brought down in the recommendation engine, right? And it's given to the procurement and supplier management system saying, oh gosh, like you look at the supplier again and re-rate the supplier and the vendor. So that's another way of looking at how this can take it to the next shape of creating value for the company.
Very cool.
which is non-human or AI.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's great. Maybe I'll just sort of change because this is a technology conference, and sort of tell us about how you think about the technology that's supporting this big transformation.
About the technology itself?
Yeah, that your CTO, you're thinking through how they're
So technology,
high level.
look, technology, I think is already there. I think technology is there for industrial grade application already. But I can tell you two problems that we see from a technological side of the angle, and not from the business, but technology side of the angle. One is data still remains a major issue. It's a massive issue of fetching the right data for the right problem. Even for any sort of company, it is not easy. On paper, it seems easy, but the amount of work still getting done to get the right set of data for solving a problem, still an issue for most of the companies. The second point, I think, is many companies are not thinking, I would say, at that level of maturity is the role of integration here. The integration of not only data itself, but once you make an application or once you make an AI model, how do you want to think about integrating into a workflow or any system that is being used by the users with less friction and more higher experience? So that experience, like you said, AIX, it's very critical. AI experience is super critical to make AI successful, if that makes sense. Right?
That's awesome. As we wrap up this discussion, you're here as a C-suite member. There are others in the audience. What is the one piece of advice you would give them, having gone through the journey yourself in the last 18 months?
The one piece of advice will be just don't wait. There is no perfect answer. You have to start acting fast and learning fast from the first experience. That's one. And attached to that advice is when you start something, start with the business sponsor if you're coming from the tech world. Because if you're going to make it a tech initiative, it's going to be very difficult to see the light of the initiative. I mean, you may find some good examples and successes, but it won't be an enterprise-wide change driver for growth or for efficiency or for value unless the business gets involved upfront. And it is a hard job to get the business sponsor to understand the value and get them into the fabric by saying, I'm not just funding $100,000 for this program, but I'm actually going to sit down every week and look at the program as to how it's adding value to my business. I think that's a shift which is going to be super critical for making this successful.
Awesome. Thank you.